Welcome back to the channel. Today is June 16th, 2026, about 5 a.m. in the morning Central Standard Time. Today I'd like to go over the Zebec coin or Zebec Network. The ticker symbol is ZBCN, and this is a relatively new project. I am on the Blowfin chart of this particular coin. This was the chart that I found that had the most history. There might be another one out there, but this is just the one that I saw. As you can tell, this is the daily chart that I'm on at the moment. And it appears September 2024, and it had a huge run up. It went to went from, I guess, 0.0000814 to 007178. So that was a pretty good gain. But that was the past. So now the question is what is Zebec doing now? Is there any chance for another bull run or a new all-time high with Zebec? And so that's what we're going to take a look at right now. And I sort of want to go over what I do when I'm looking at a coin. I'm not saying this by any means to be the best way to look at it. Keep in mind that I am an amateur investor and trader. I have a day job that does not include finances. So I am an amateur at this, and there will probably be better analysts out there. However, I just like to go over the charts because it's become sort of my hobby, and I'm just going to show you what I see. And hopefully, if you were kind of thinking about ZBAC too, and you hadn't looked at something that I was looking at a different way, maybe that helps you in your decisions for trading this particular coin. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to start looking at trends and support and resistance lines. So I'm going to get this ray tool because I see that there is a trend. There is a trend around here. Now, what I do is with this ray tool is I'm just rotating it down, and I'm going to where the first lines are, and I stop. Now, as you can see, Zebec went over this trend line, but it's now back under it. But we've got several touches here. We got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it's a pretty significant trend line. It is a down sloping trend line. Those don't seem to be as powerful as, like, say, a horizontal support and resistance line. However, it is very important to take note of it because, as you can tell, even though it peaked above that support and resistance line, it keeps on going back to it. In this area, it just can't quite get back above it. And it went up there, almost touched it, and went trouble back down again. So at the moment, it appears that price is pretty much going down in this slope. Now, some other support and resistance areas that I see, and I'm not going to put them all on here. I'm just going to put the ones that are probably close to where price could get to. I see a support and resistance about here, where we last had our last dip here on this pivot low. And as you can see, it did peak below there, but this touched it. This touched it all around here. That touched it, and that touched it. So if price does go back down to here, the question is will it hold as support, or will it just blow right through? How important of a support and resistance line as this is. The next support and resistance area is about right here. And I think I can actually draw this out further. And I'm not doing it perfectly yet. Don't worry, I'm going to adjust it. Go down here. And I don't think that this counts. So we're just going to say this is more of a short-term support and resistance line. So price, what we're looking for, this is a point of interest of whether it appears like it can hold it. This one seems to be pretty strong because of all these touches, and it is. And I am kind of curious what's going to happen when it comes back here. But now that we've kind of looked at that, let's take a look at the moving averages. So the first moving average I'm going to put out is the 200. Excuse me, sorry about that. I got a little bit of a cough. We have the 200 there, and price currently is above the 200. And we have the 20, which crossed the 200, but now it's following the price down, and it seems very likely based on its angle, it will probably cross this 200 unless something happens. Now, if we look at the 50, we see that the 50 is still above the 200, but it's starting to cross down. So, as you can tell, from a momentum or swing trader standpoint, we had something very bullish here. The 20 crossed above the 50, and as you can tell, they're kind of in this railroad track. They had the 50 crossing the 200 was a what we call a golden cross. I would say it got up significant enough to be considered a golden cross. This is where the 50 crosses the simple 200 moving average, but now it's kind of lost momentum and it's going back down. And it appears that we may have a death cross coming unless something changes. That's the current term that we're in. So, what I like to do when you have this happen is take other views of this chart and look at other indicators and see if we can get an idea of what's possibly going on. So I'm going to go to this chart here, and I've moved up the chart time frame to the 3 month chart. And if you take a look at this from the perspective of the 3 month chart, you can see that we are forming a, what's the best way to describe it? Like its first jacket up. So this was its pivot top up here, and now it's going back down. Now, a couple of things that I'm seeing this here based on the 3 month chart. Keep in mind every candle here represents 3 months of price action. I'm not liking the candles. So this was all good. This was, when it hit its peak. It came down here. This candle was an indecision candle. Obviously, this was a bearish candle. And now we're back to a indecision candle again. The reason why we call it indecision candle is because the wicks below and above the body are almost an equal length. But now a very interesting candle formation is starting to form here on this 3 month chart. But keep in mind, this candle has not printed, which means it's got 14 more days to print. So we're almost near the 3 month cycle of this particular candle. This is forming what's called a, I guess the term is, it's a hammer candle, but it's a downward hammer candle. So because this, think of it, see how the price shot all the way here, and even though this candle is green and it's above this indecision candle, because this is how candles are done, is when the next candle's body is above the other candle, it's automatically turned green. Therefore, this candle will probably print green unless something really bad happens in the next 14 days. However, it's inching down currently. And when I say when it gets about here, that's a very textbook bearish hammer. And typically what that signals is that price is going down further. What this means for Zebec is that we're not quite sure if it's in a bear market or a bull market. Because let's say, so how would we determine if we are in a bear market or a bull market? Well, if Zebec, let's say this candle reverses, or maybe it stays like this, but you have another candle that goes up like this, and then maybe the next 3 months goes up like this, and then you may get a new high. That would be considered a bull market type scenario. However, if you see Zebec have another lower candle go down here, and it breaks this low of this one and keeps on going down, that's a sign that we're probably more in a bear run situation. And therefore, we can expect the price of Zebec to go back down. We're not going to know this for a short time period. Therefore, I don't think this would be the best time to start throwing money into Zebec until we get confirmation of what's going on. If we drop our time frame to the weekly time frame, you can sort of see this. You saw, okay, it's been going down. This is obviously a bear market pattern. You're making lower highs, you're making lower lows, and then you have this low, and then boom, all of a sudden you have a higher high. Now, these particular, whenever you're in a bear market, you can have situations where the formation doesn't go perfectly, where each high is lower and each low is lower. You can't have times when the stock goes, triggers up and then goes back down and continues the pattern of going down. If we look at the RSI, we can tell that, and this is the weekly RSI, you can tell that we became extremely oversold back here in May of 2025. Then when we came to this particular point in the chart, we went to the lowest the RSI has been on the chart, which was about, I would say 45. Now, keep in mind from a weekly perspective, you're not really considered oversold until you're below 30. There is a lot of downside to go. But based on its short history, this trend line has represented the beginning of the low peaks. So this point here, like I said, was considered the lowest, but previously this was considered the lowest, and we crossed that line. However, we started to retrace back to it. So on the RSI, one of the things we're going to be looking for is, does this price, this RSI here, does it cross this line again? That would be very bearish, and that would be a expectation that we will see price go lower. As far as momentum goes, we are definitely in downward momentum, and we had our last cross basically March of 2026, and starting in April of 26, so after about a month, we had a RSI cross above the 80, and now it's going down. We're losing momentum, and it's going to start getting worse because we see no signs of a cross back up. So therefore, we're expecting to cross below this 20. And if we look at the money flow index, it hasn't been too bad. One of the interesting things I'm finding about this particular chart is that Zebec, even though it's going down and it's in a downward momentum, it's not a really fast downward spiral like we see in a lot of cryptocurrencies. It's a very methodical downward movement, and that could be a sign that I would say more than likely we are in a bear market, even though that candle on the 3-month chart looks good. That could be an issue, but again, when you scale down to the daily, and you're seeing that 3-month period where it looks better, you could also count this as a pause. And again, the big thing is we have to see what's going to happen when this 3-month close happens, and see if it can start inching higher. If you look at it from a monthly perspective, it's very simple. This is, if you want this particular month here, we're in June 26. We want the next candle to be green so that it starts going up. But as you can tell, based on the monthly chart, we had a lower high. because this is a high right here, and now it's gone lower. And what we would like to see is we'd like to say, oh, okay, well, that's a blimp because it didn't make a new lower low. And we want to see the price after the pivot, wherever that pivot is going to occur, kind of go up here. And it doesn't have to make a higher high, but we want to see a reversing trend. You want to see it go back higher than here. It doesn't have to rush all the way back up here and go back there. So those are a few things to kind of keep in mind when you're looking at this. Also, on coins that aren't very established, you can also bring up something called the directional index, and this kind of also gives us a view of the momentum of the chart. So if you take this ADX has not, even though it's going down, this is actually very similar to the RSI. It's just measuring momentum, and even though it's pointed down, that is not telling you that the asset is going down. It's telling you that the momentum is low. You want the ADX to be 20 and above. And as you can tell, during its peak, bear market, it got up to here. And I'm looking at this white line here. And that was about 48. Therefore, right now we're in 19, so the momentum is essentially low. And as you can see, we've been playing with uh, this 19 level for quite a while. This started back in January 2026. That's one of the reasons why you're seeing the slow descent to the coin instead of a real fast high descent going down. So I'm going to take this white line off, and I'm going to talk about the other two lines. So we know that momentum's at 19. The blue represents buying, and the red represents selling. And as you can tell, uh, red was on top for most of this period, and we had a cross where the blue crossed up, and this is that area where you saw the trend starting to change. Now you've come down and you saw it to change, but you're seeing an increase up, which is a good sign. And this is the weekly chart, so we're measuring this on the weekly scale. What we want to do, obviously, is we want a situation like this where this blue starts really separating itself from the red, and you have way more buying than selling on the chart. So this is something else you can keep in mind. This isn't as popular of an indicator, so let me just bring it up real quick. It's called the directional movement index. If you look for this, you can bring it up on your chart. I didn't change any of the settings other than the colors, and pretty much I just changed the colors of the bars. But you can bring that up and on your own chart and take a look at it when you're trying to keep an eye on Zebec. So where am I at with Zebec? I am, for disclosure purposes, I am invested in Zebec. I am in a losing position at the moment, which is not really a concern. I'm about right here. This is where I last bought in, was about here. I will expect to lose more money downward. I do not know if Zebec is going to make a new higher high this particular season. It's too early to tell what's going to happen with Zebec. However, if you are interested in getting into Zebec, uh, the real question is how low can it go? And based off the RSI, uh, I would wait until you start seeing this RSI making a significant move back up above the Sparkin. If Zebec crosses this line and it goes lower, and I don't know how much lower it is. What you want to wait for is you want to see this starting to gravitate and going up. And I would not, you might could get in. It just depends on how low it goes. But let's say it goes back to here again. I would wait to reinvest money until you start seeing this inch back to this line and attempting to cross it. and you'd want to see this kind of action going up like this, even though there's no guarantee that it's going to make its way all the way up there. But nothing goes up in a straight line, and sometimes it doesn't do go up in a line the way we want, where we have higher highs and higher lows. Uh, and that's where Zebec is right now. The momentum is low, and there are signs it's probably going to cross this line here, but we'll have to see. This is a support and resistance line, very similar if you draw a support and resistance line there. And so the sign is, the sign is not bad. So that's all I have for today. I I hope that you are investing safely during this market, and not using lots of leverage. I personally wouldn't use any, uh, but I wish that God blesses your family, and I hope that you have a blessed day.